Rolling Stone's Still Life American Concert 1981, that's all it says on the front of the album cover. The whole package, actually, I'd just like to say a quick word about. I think it's incredibly cheap looking. There's very little information about the concert or the album. The inner bag is just covered with backstage passes and Rolling Stones catering passes and parking tickets, and a guy with Rolling Stones Lick JFK written on his back. Now, just my imagination. Now, this song is a really nice song. Why, in God's name, does Mick Jagger wail constantly going through it? I can't believe it. His style of singing through the entire album is so alike to every other album that they've recorded that it's unbelievable. And I can't wait for Mick Jagger's voice to break. Now don't you worry about what's on your mind, oh, no. Let's Spend the Night Together. It's probably the only song on here that I like. But then again, that's probably the only Rolling Stones song that I like. Apparently they sell about 8 million albums every time they release one. So they've got no worries if I don't like them. And I'm sure if they hear this, they'll understand.
Well, my name's Martin Ware from Heaven 17 and BEF. I've been asked to review the album by Bobby Womack called The Poet. Basically, there's no new ground covered in it, but for the sort of people who groove on that sort of thing, which personally doesn't include me, but I'm more than happy to keep it in my collection. There's one track called Secrets, which was almost Bowie. Oh, incidentally, the backing vocals on the entire album were absolutely tremendous, although Glenn thought that it sounded a bit like the King singers in places. The only real surprise on the album was the last track on the first side called Stand Up, which was quite a hard funk song as opposed to the sort of soft swimming pool, cocktail, sun, driving around in open-top convertibles along the LA freeway sound that is prevalent on the rest of the album.
Annette Peacock here. Nina Hagen has vocal dimension and is carving out a niche for herself which she fills very nicely. And although it is an amalgamation of several obvious derivations, which is a no-no within authentic artistic circles, she works very hard and in a big way, and I like her for this reason.
Once upon a time, when Jesus was walking down his way on earth, he met this man who was possessed by a demon. And Jesus asked the man, "Why do you speak so funny? And why do you behave like that?" And the man said, "Well, Jesus, because I'm possessed by a demon." God! Jesus said. And the demon went out into the pig, and the pig was running away, screaming.
What I think about this product is irrelevant, really, because I'm not one of her customers. I can only evaluate it on the basis of its validity personally from me. The what and the how are not particularly interesting or useful to me, as they don't deal with any territories I have not previously explored or present any new solutions to unexisting possibilities. The musicians appear to be a qualified group of unindividuals who could have been anyone else with regard to spreading as a waste of a good guitarist. The lyric content is the territory that Nina has either obviously chosen to ignore or is at a disadvantage with. At this point in time, there is no apparent inherited literary talent. Rather, she takes after her mother, the actress. But once you put your foot in your mouth, there's no point in worrying about how it looks. For me, it is an album containing only 3 tracks. But for those of you who can afford to spend $4.25 to collect something for its moderate bazaar value and only 3 tracks that are musically successful, there's nothing to say except, may I suggest that you ask your local dealer for Annette Peacock's latest release, Sky Skating. Not only does it have 12 musically successful and classic tracks, but I've made innovation enjoyable for you.
Simon Forbes works at Hip Clip Joint Antennae, where he explains to Mike Lambert what it's like to have your hands full of other people's hair all day, and almost sells them something for the weekend, perhaps.
What often happens is a classic in the industry is somebody brings in a photograph and they show you a picture of a stunningly good-looking girl who's got a fairly ordinary hairstyle that doesn't actually do much. And what they're looking at is the image of the model rather than the hair. So you've then got to A, convince them of that, and B, suggest something else which is actually going to enhance that individual.
Do you find that most of the photographs people bring in are of pop groups they want to look like? They want a Duran Duran or a Spandau Ballet? Or...
Actually, not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, not as much as you might imagine. We get... Well, I'll have to name drop here. One of my clients is Terry Hall from Funboy 3. Now, we do get a lot of...
He has said his haircut was an accident. More or less a joke, he didn't know what he wanted.
That's right, yeah. And he, without realising it, sparked off a whole trend with his haircut. And we've had a terrific response to that particular hairstyle.
Yeah, there's often a lot of girls taking it up as well, I notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but particular styles and fads, you know, take the Terry Hall thing for instance. Find that the sort of fashion really spreads very quickly, or does it take a long time, or how long can it last?
It's an interesting way that it actually starts off. It begins with, you always start with the very strongest end of things. So it starts off full strength, undiluted image, and Terry's a good example of that, right? And then what you get is you start getting watered down, diluted versions of that, which spread across the market. And in the end, next year, the high street hairdressing salons will be producing Terry Hall haircuts, but that are softened off and have lost their balls, basically.
Whoa, baby, you're a nine. You're a nine.
Joan Jett discusses the finer points of paranormal psychomania with Simon Ludgate.
What do you think you're doing wrong with the Runaways that you're doing right now?
I don't think we were doing anything wrong with the Runaways. The way the Runaways started out, the first impression that everyone got from the Runaways was a sexual image. You know, it was like jailbait rock and roll, whereas the members of the band, we were all really into the music. We just wanted to be a rock and roll band, but we were stuck with the label of, you know, being jailbait rock and roll. And once we were stuck with that, we could never get rid of it. It was one of those things that ultimately killed the band. We couldn't get away from it as hard as we tried.
What would you say the main driving force behind you is?
Well, I've always been a very aggressive person. I love sports, you know, aggressive sports, contact sports.
Like what?
American football, baseball, anything, you know, contact sport where it's very physical. I like that stuff.
Do you like films like Rollerball?
Yes, yes.
Do you go for death and destruction type movies like Death Race 2000 and?
No, not so much. I like James Bond. James Bond
Why?
is my style. I don't know. He's just he's a hero. I like him. For this, I don't know. I guess.
Do you identify with that?
I guess in a way. I mean, he's like supposedly the ultimate, you know.
I mean, if the roles were reversed, would you rather be like sort of the girl who gets her man at the end of the film?
I suppose. I don't know.
Do you ever get paranoid?
Paranoid? Yes. Yes, I do. I'm trying to think. Well, do you consider stage fright being paranoid?
No, I'd call that more nerves. I mean, that's sort of natural nerves.
I'm a very high-strung person, very nervous person, very excitable. It's like I can get really nervous about stuff very quickly.
But the success you've had over the last 6-9 months, do you never feel that, I mean, are you surrounded by good people, or are you a bit suspicious sometimes?
I'm not suspicious one bit. I have my trust in, you know, my managers. I trust them completely. I'm gonna run away. I'm never coming back to you. Yeah, I'm gonna run away. I'm never coming back to you.
Neil Norman meets filmmaker Lindsay Anderson.
Britannia Hospital is an everyday story of Bolshevik unions, radicals and royals, mad scientists and the SPG. Director Lindsay Anderson leaves no British institution unstoned as he vents his spleen in his latest, for want of a better word, comedy. Together with If and Oh Lucky Man, Britannia Hospital completes a thematic trilogy of films about Britain, though Anderson is quick to point out that each film is separate and stands on its own merits.
Were you expecting such a high level of resentment amongst British film critics?
I don't know. These kind of questions, quite honestly, are much more to do with critics and journalists than they are to do with filmmakers. I mean, when you assume that I'm expecting controversy, well, I don't think that's particularly true. I don't even think about it a great deal. I mean, I'm much more expecting people to be amused, to laugh at the film, to enjoy it. My business is not to make a film that is going to arouse controversy, but to make an entertainment which people will find intriguing, exciting, funny and stimulating. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm thinking about. You must also understand that I don't probably even know what the opinion of a lot of these critics are, and I don't have to be all that interested, quite honestly. No, I think that there are a number of critics I know who've enjoyed the film very much, and I believe there are critics who don't like it, but you do find the critics who don't like it generally don't talk about it much. They just sort of walk around with glum faces, or they avoid you. And generally the people who don't like the film are people who have very little contact with the public anyway. There is a whole area of film criticism where you have critics who, so to speak, write for each other. Mm-hmm. And you think the number of people who read a magazine like Sight and Sound is extraordinarily small. It's mostly read by other film culture experts, and I think it has practically nothing to do with either filmmakers or the cinema audience.
The film's humour is so black in most cases that the sort of audience that you are hoping to reach, i.e. perhaps not necessarily the critical elite or whatever you like to call themselves of such and such, will simply not find it funny.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed you say that. I mean, I would question, have you been in a pub, say, on any evening when there are 4 or 5 people talking about the government? You'll
Yes.
find that their views are totally cynical. The view of the man in the street is generally, say, that politicians or the heads of any institutions are there in order to further their own careers and feather their nests.
Mm-hmm.
I think the view of the average worker about the union bosses is extremely disabused and not in the least sentimental. I think you're talking really like a representative of the media and not actually like an ordinary person. I don't think the ordinary person thinks about black humour particularly. I don't think the humour of Britannia Hospital is particularly black. I think it's very realistic, quite cynical in the way that the average person is, and farcical.
Of course, you realise, Ben, they're going to need someone to represent them at the ceremony. I was going to ask you to sit with HRH at her table, but of course, if the meals aren't to be...
That's a gesture my people certainly appreciate.
You know, very often on these occasions, when a worker's representative is singled out for special duty of this kind, he may find he's expected to accept some token of acknowledgement. An MBE, say.
What about an OBE?
It's possible.
Memorabilia. Where did our love go? A man could get lost. Chips on my shoulder. Sex dwarf. 5 classic cell. Plus what?
What can I do when I still love you? What can I say when I still want you? What can I do? What can I say? You'll never know this way.
5 classic cell plus 1 new cell. 6 rethought and remixed soft cell tracks on a unique 12-inch mini album called Non-Stop Ecstatic Dancing. Available now at a special low cell price.
Please forgive me, come back and then we can fall in love over and over and over and over again.
Touted as the next big thing for the last 2 years, Scritti Politti finally seemed poised on the edge of success. Founder member Green talks to John DeBono.
Seven of us in Scritti Politti, we finally decided 4 musicians and the 3 girls who do all the backing singing. And it was amorphous for quite a while, but we've decided it works so well that everybody's been pulled together and we're going to make a go of it as a 7-piece. And the album took so long, it's been completed for quite a long time, but we've been holding out on it with a view to putting some singles out so it'll gain more attention when it's finally released. Because had we released it when it was finished, it probably would have gone the way of all independent flesh and never been heard of again.
Faithless is very much a grower track. I mean, I suppose the hit on the album was the first single that you released, It's Sweetest Girl.
Yeah, well, there's probably going to be a Jacques Derrida from the album's going to be a 3rd single. I think Faithless was quite a challenge for me because I wanted to have a go at doing one of those sort of very slow soul ballads and stay fairly true to the form, which meant not taking too many radical departures with melody or the rest of it. And I mean, I think it worked remarkably well. So
very
I'm delighted.
Pink Floydy.
Pink Floydy. Yeah. Well, I mean, I take issue with that. I mean, I think people who say it's like some bits of Dark Side of the Moon are the people who aren't sufficiently familiar with the black soul roots of that music. I mean, it's a lot more like soul music than Pink Floyd.
And your next single, Jack the Reader, I suppose, fairly much highlights the fact that your lyrics and your songs generally are a bit more literate than you've come to expect from a rock group. Is that a deliberate thing?
They're more interesting than perhaps you come to expect from a rock group, but they're less verbose than they used to be. So I mean, I kind of think of them as quite simple.
What's Jack the Reader about in particular?
Oh, Jack the Reader. Jack the this is where it doesn't it stops being simple.
Complicated.
No, Jack the Reader's about the it's about the attraction of both sort of revolutionary and reactionary politics, really, and how in the end your own desire dispenses with both of them. Perhaps.
Wow.
It's also good tune and a
oh yeah,
rhythm,
I mean,
you know.
it's about
But I mean that whole idea of you know, the intellectual angle of rock and the thoughtful aspect of rock, is that something that you deliberately hang on to? Because Scritti does have this, I mean, Scritti political writings, is it not? In
yeah,
Italian?
That's right. No, I'm quite happy to lay off that for a while, because it gets a bit of an albatross to be thought of as nothing but sort of wordy and aloof, which isn't at all the case anymore, at least.
So you're after a pop single?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's really no point in making popular music unless you're going to get it out to all the people and get them buying it, and it's actually popular by definition.
T. R. I. O. Trio, with their new single, Da Da Da, available now.
Dieter Meyer, 1/3 of Yello, explains the thinking behind this extraordinary Swiss trio.
Now, if you watch this man, he's really one unity with his machine. He's the #1 pinball player in Mexico City. And for him, if he plays his game, everything is claro que sí.
One important thing about Yello definitely is that we, unlike other bands, don't rehearse a piece and then reproduce it in the studio when we record it. The main idea is to use tape the way somebody who's drawing uses paper, with all the freedom you have to sort of throw it away if it doesn't work, to really start from scratch with every new piece you do. The way we work together is quite sort of unusual too, because we hardly ever are together in the studio. The process is more like somebody compared it with two guys playing chess, one sitting in Moscow, the other sitting in wherever, you know, and they just send the moves in envelopes to each other. It works a bit like this when we do our things. It's Boris Blank, who's designing all the sound pictures, and after he has sort of finished a first idea of a sound picture, it's me, Dieter, who's sort of stepping into this sound picture, almost like an opera singer who's stepping into a scene, and I then find my way within Boris's jungle of sounds by sort of moving in his sounds for hours and days and sometimes weeks, until I have found my way within his pictures.
If you like this sort of thing, and let's face it, who doesn't, why don't you look at our special Yello offer on the cover? It's fab.
Snooky Tate sings He's the Groove.
He's the groove, he's the man, he's the Pope in the Vatican. He's the groove, he's the man, he's the Pope in the Vatican. Get that!
Outlaw by Alan Vega, produced by August Darnell.
L'échange backseat of my car en carrière.
He sings John Wayne's Big Leggy.
Devon band Ghosts of Dance go walking through gardens on the plastic canvas label.
The Ivory Coasters play Nungaka Makossa on Recreational Records.
SFX 17 will be available on July the 8th, featuring the usual galaxy of stars. Our first issue is sold out and the others are going fast, so if you need those back copies, order them now. They're £1 each, including postage. By the way, our newly installed answer phone has been a great success. Ring 01836 0234 after 6 if you have something to tell us. We look forward to your call.
Sorry I just rang up, but I just want to mention again that SFX is the best thing that ever happened to tapes. But if you don't like this message, just don't print it. Or what away. Thanks for all the SFX issues. They've all been great.
Hello, my name's Debbie. Please can you interview with Soft Cell, in particular Mark Almond. Thank you very much.
Hello. More tour news on Circus News. And this is a heavy metal fan from Wakefield in Yorkshire, the home of heavy metal. Well, almost. Signing off, goodbye.